No Purpose Without Love is a podcast dedicated to helping you find purpose through the relentless pursuit of God's love. The unfortunate reality is that we are born into a world that does not know God. Since God is synonymous with love, to be without God is to be without love. This podcast aims to bring light to the dark areas of your life so that you gain a deeper connection with love as a person, more affectionately known as Jesus. Jesus spoke often about the kingdom of God, and in the kingdom, love is the why behind everything that exists, including our purpose. I am your host, Dave Guresso, and my hope and prayer is that you will experience the overwhelming love of God so powerfully that you will become love to a world that is still very much without love. God has given me the ability to provide the spark, but He wants to fan into flames the purpose that He has for you, which always leaves a trail of breadcrumbs leading right back to our Father and Creator. Please remember to follow this podcast to continue receiving notifications about new episodes as they're released. Now let's get fired up. Welcome to the No Purpose Without Love podcast. I am your host, Dave Guresso, and today I have Stephanie Allen with me. She is a career confidence coach for moms who want to relaunch successful careers in midlife. Her passion is helping moms improve their career image from the inside out. A key component of Stephanie's program is helping the moms that she works with believe that just because their life and the job market might have changed doesn't mean their value has. She has 10 years of recruiting, coaching, and staffing experience. She's worked in corporate America, in human resources, for a nonprofit, a startup, and has started her own business, but is her personal experience as a veteran spouse who left a lucrative career to support her husband's military career and raise 3 children that ultimately gives her a unique perspective on the struggles that moms face when trying to re-enter the workforce. She's also a certified life coach and has helped many women gain the confidence that they need to make a comeback to their careers. So welcome to the show, Stephanie. It's great to have you. I'm excited to have this conversation and learn more about what it is that you do and how you help moms. And I thank you. You can pass the message along for your husband's service to our country as well.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I definitely will. We're so proud to do it. So thank you, David. I'm glad I'm here.
I'm glad to have you. So why don't you start off, Stephanie, by just sharing the story of how you got into this space of coaching moms. I love the stories because they often bring out so much insight that our listeners can glean wisdom from. So share your story. How did you get here?
Thank you so much. Well, it was about 6 years ago that I had moved once again as a military spouse. I moved 10 times in the 24 years that we had been married. So on average, every 2 years. And we had moved once again to Tampa. And I was starting my career over again. I had raised my children. They weren't completely out of the house yet, but I wanted to get back to work as soon as my youngest started kindergarten. So he was 5. I had worked in the Fort Walton Beach area, and then we relocated to Tampa. And I, once again, was at this crossroads of what am I going to do next? I had an extensive background in the human resources industry and staffing and recruiting. I had been a career coach, but once we moved again, it was an opportunity to reinvent myself. You get really good at doing that as a military spouse. And so I thought, I was listening to a podcast one day and it was about life coaching. And I thought this was so interesting to me. I was always interested in psychology. That was my minor in college. And I thought, let me just dig into this a little bit and pursue it. And that's when I decided to get a life coach certification. I started my own coaching business. At first, I worked with midlife moms doing more general transition related life coaching. And then I niche down to getting back in touch with all my background and coming full circle and helping midlife moms relaunch their careers in midlife, because that had been my story and I had struggled with it. And I finally figured out the secret through coaching. And I felt like it was time for me to be able to give back to other women. And so that's what brought me here today.
Yeah, and I'm sure you had a lot of struggles with going through that process. I know sometimes when we tell the story, it's condensed into the few-minute version of here's all these things that happen. But in
Mhm.
between is where all the struggle and the wrestling with your reality and coming to terms with this is who I am, this is what I was created to do. Tell us a little
Mhm.
bit more about what that struggle was like for you, as you went through that journey.
Well, certainly, when my son started kindergarten, it was back in, let's see, 2014. I also have 2 other daughters, and, they right now, they're 18, 20, and he's now 13, but at the time, I thought, "I'm gonna get back out there. As soon as he started kindergarten, I'm gonna get back out there." I was a stay-at-home mom, moving all the time, following my husband's career, made it difficult to maintain my own career. And so I just, decided to fall in love with being a stay-at-home mom and appreciating so much that I had the opportunity to do that. But I always told myself that I was not done. But when I went to get back out there, I felt like I had something to prove. And I really didn't kind of soul search and dig in enough to be able to make a choice and give myself the time to figure out what was it that I truly wanted to do now. Did I want to go back to my same career, or did I want to pursue something else? And I felt like, I just really initially jumped the gun too soon. And so that's something that I incorporated into my program for moms to give them, I asked them some ideal career clarity questions. And we really dig in deep to why they want to make relaunch into the workforce. They have to have a strong why, a strong, compelling reason for wanting to get back out there. And then also what they're most passionate about. I mean, during the time I was a mom, during the time I was, supporting my husband's career, and he ran a couple squadrons and wrapping my arms around the military families, I gained valuable experience doing that. And at first, I didn't value that when I got back out there. I felt like I was in such lack. I was lacking confidence because there was such a gap, between me staying home and getting back out there. I told myself I was no longer valuable, and I didn't take into account all of the skills I had learned from my life experience, from volunteering, and that's something that I also incorporate into my program. But also just, the technology. For a period of time, I was a Rip Van Winkle. I was so involved in loving staying at home that I did let go of my network, and I did let go of my technical skills for a period of time. So that in itself made me feel so fearful, and I lacked courage when I first, went out there. Am I going to be able to know how to use the copier again? Like silly questions like that, right? And so I initially that was my struggle. And now just through becoming a certified life coach and just putting myself out there and helping other women, I help them get over those hurdles and further increase their marketability, enable them to do that within a 90-day period of time, but also own the professional journey that they have had and their life experience as a whole, and bring that with them when they're relaunching themselves out there.
Yeah, that's amazing. And flashes of faces pop into my head as you talk, like, oh, they could use this. This would be so cool. What is one thing that shifted you towards seeing that value in yourself? Like, I know you're struggling with it, but what is one thing that happened? Was it a conversation? Did you see something? Did you listen to something? Like, what began that shift for you towards, hey, I have tremendous value in all of that?
Well, I think the two most important sentences that we can have are I am a woman who, our I am statements. Those statements are so strong. We have to be careful about what we tell ourselves and also what we speak, right? And so just through the coaching certification, through having amazing coaches myself, that helped me to really believe in myself and own my own journey, right? And not let other people, employers decide that for me. I needed to be able to decide my own narrative out there. And I think too much as moms, if we have a career break, we decide it's the worst thing ever. But there's so many things that we're doing. There's so many things that we're learning during that career break. There's transferable skills that we're assuming that we just need to be able to speak about them more confidently to employers. So I would say that that's just something that I was able to traverse myself and then get back out there and now be able to help others. That enables me to be able to coach the women that I work with successfully so they can achieve their own career goals.
Yeah. So based on what you're saying, it almost sounds like it's tapping into the strengths that have been built up over all these years where you feel like
Yes,
you've been out of the loop. We underestimate, or the women
yes.
in general just underestimate the power and the influence and the knowledge, the wisdom that they've gained through all of those experiences.
Yes, so we definitely we undermine ourselves. We're our own worst enemy, and then we're also a lot of times with me. I mean, I didn't get back into the job market until I was in my mid 40s. I started my family a little later, and so nowadays I think women worry about ageism, but we're our own worst enemy with that as well, right? We need to support one another. We need to change the narrative, and again, give our career some CPR, right? Meaning owning again our career story, deciding what we're most passionate about, what is our purpose now, right? We still love our families. That's my favorite purpose, right? But what else is a purpose that we can, that we can really get behind? And then relevancy. We're responsible for our own relevancy. If my technical skills weren't, I was rusty, okay, what can I do to get them back up to speed? There's things that we can do actually very quickly to be able to be more confident in that area. Or what do I need to brush up in my particular industry on? We get back on LinkedIn, we can make that a fun experience to really show who we are, even put our personality out there and what we're passionate about. One of the most exciting things about my program is I make it fun and I make it an opportunity for self-discovery. It's a 12-week program. And yes, we connect all the dots. So when it comes to your LinkedIn and resume and your cover letter and networking and salary negotiation, work-life balance, I mean, all those things, but it's the confidence, it's the things on the inside that need to back it up. And that's why when I talk about career image, it's not just your public image. It's just, recreating and pumping up that self-image that you need to get back to your career identity. It took me time to get to my mom identity after I stepped out of my career. That takes a little bit of, just a, sweet spot with that, right? It takes us time to go, but to staying home mom from career, well, we got to give ourselves some grace and work with someone like myself to be able to get back in touch with our career and identity. And so that's something just very special about my program as well that I love to do for moms, just give them that encouragement.
Yeah, and so I think you said a couple key things there too, right? Is I think a lot of times we take these struggles as human beings in general and we try to do it alone. We try to sort through it alone in our minds, but we underestimate the value and the power of having someone come alongside you to do it with. And maybe for some, paying for a coach isn't the best, but even having a friend or somebody there to guide you through the process who isn't as emotionally attached to your specific situation to provide
Mhm.
that encouragement and guidance. Like those are just huge.
Yeah, and I do have a story. Just I was a career coach for military spouses for a period of time, and I'm still able to do that as well. But one of the spouses, I worked for an organization, and we did just help them to hit all the bells and whistles, with their resume and cover letter and like I mentioned, LinkedIn and all that. But kind of what was missing about working for that organization was kind of the career confidence piece, the encouragement piece. And I just felt like that was one thing that stood out about me, compared to the other coaches that were there that, the military spouses that were working with, they really needed and really related to. It wasn't just about all the checking the boxes for all the things. It was about just that, they needed help with their own confidence. And one of the women, she brought me a little bracelet, just some she had gotten a gift shop, and it had this funny story. It had Tinkerbell on it. I mean, she just really thought that I was her, just her fairy, career fairy, with this little bracelet that she had given me. And I just think it symbolized, I still have it in my desk. It just really symbolized just that extra encouragement, that she needed. And she ended up, finding a great opportunity, and the rest is history.
How cool. See, there was something else that you had said too. You talked about purpose beyond just being, a wife, a mom, and I think that comes up in conversation in my own household is what is the purpose outside being a husband, a wife, a father, a mother. And so and I will add this in, like a lot of times I think when we say living a purposeful life, the first thing that pops in mind is job. Right. But I also think that purpose it goes beyond just the job too. And I think you alluded to that when you said it's deeper than that, right? It's why you
Mhm.
want to have this strong why. Why are you going after this? And that's what really where we start getting into the realm of purpose. So the next question I have for you then is like, what does it mean to you, Stephanie, to live out one's purpose? What does that mean when I ask that question? What comes to
Certainly. Well, I mean, our purpose is the life we are living now, and being the best examples of ourselves within it. There's so much that aligns with purpose. For example, for myself, my family, my faith, I mean, that's my ultimate purpose right there. And again, being a good example in my life. But I also want to be a great example just for my own children, even specifically for my daughters. I think it's the greatest thing that I've been able to stay home for the period of time that I did, but also what a major coup, right? Even at midlife, I can decide to want more, right? It's okay to want more. It's okay to be ambitious. Even if you're a strong woman of faith, then that's not a dirty word, right? That I can be an example for them that at any time in their life, we have multiple purposes, right? And they can decide, to do something like myself, to wait until midlife and go after their dreams. And that's what I'm doing now. I just think the challenge of doing this at midlife, well, how fun is that, right? To be able to come back to your career and be able to grow it and do some of the things that I've been able to do and help other moms to be able to do the same, that we're not done. There is more. I think we're always reaching for more because, as Christians, we're reaching for heaven, right? So there's nothing wrong with reaching, for more. But my passionate purpose is to, just help other moms be able to do the same things that I did and to have heart, especially after their kids. My favorite purpose is my kids are grown, right? That they've got something that they could come to that's all their own, that's their new kind of baby that they're developing, that they can make a contribution in other ways and provide in other ways, for their families, and then also just, in helping us.
Yeah. So that's really good. There's a couple different directions I want to go with this, right? One is you brought up ambition, right? And being faith-based, right? And that sometimes it feels like those two don't go together. If you're
Mhm.
faith-based, you can't be ambitious. But this is a bit of a trigger word for me personally, Stephanie, because I love discussing these dichotomies that we have
Mhm.
as faith-based coaches, myself being one too, is there's ambition, but then there's selfish ambition. And I think, or money and the love of money, right? These are
Mhm.
two different things too. It's a dichotomy that we struggle with as faith-based coaches. When we think about selfish ambition, and I think a lot of women struggle, am I being selfish by wanting more? Am I being not a good mom or not a good wife because I see something outside my home that brings a sense of purpose to my life? And we know the answer is no, right? But there's this internal struggle that
Oh,
happens.
yeah.
I'm so ambitious. I want that. And some moms don't want to be stay-at-home moms because they do feel like they want the career and they feel
Exactly.
guilty
Yeah.
for wanting that, right? And so
Mhm.
talk to us a little bit first, like when you think about this idea of ambition versus selfish ambition, what comes to mind, and how can you help moms sort through that internal struggle?
Oh, thank you so much for asking that. I really appreciate it. Well, I have, three best friends. One that never stopped working. We actually worked and these two of these friends, we worked in the same industry. We were in the staffing industry together, like in our early to mid 20s. We all did very well. Height of the tech boom. That was a while ago, right? Made six figures, but one of them continued to work. It's just interesting the journey you have with your girlfriends, right? And then two of us stayed home. Actually, three stayed home, but I think that would be great to write a book about like the journey of women and your best friends and what decisions they made in terms of career and staying at home. So I ended up staying home, because after I had my children, again, we talked about my story. One of them continued until my kids were 5. The other one has continued to stay home. Her second one is getting ready to go off to college. She's getting ready to be an empty nester. And then another friend of mine ended up going back to work, I think after her kids got a little older, and went to work for Starbucks, and then went to work, as a librarian assistant. No matter, I want to empower women no matter what choice that they make, right? And so my program is definitely not an opportunity for judgment, no matter what. I value all women, and I think we all need to support each other, and we all need to just have each other's back, and we need to it's about being confident in our decisions and know that we have, we're good people and we have our children's best interest at heart. So anyway, with those journeys, I just looking at my friends and seeing that, and being, empowering all of them, but also, there's just different people. There's, my one friend, some moms want to just kind of, maybe they go to work for a staffing firm, or they just kind of dabble in some things, and maybe they want to work part-time. Maybe they don't want to have something that's really intense that they're getting back into, and that's perfectly fine. With the program that I work with, the moms they want to relaunch. They want to actually get back to where they were prior to staying at home, or they want to, recreate something new, and they are ambitious. But no matter what, I think that the point is to, I think we should change the narrative in general, support one another, and just drop the judgment. As far as mom guilt goes, though, boy, we're our own worst enemies with that. Myself included, I still struggle with that, every day. But what I do is I just am really good at managing my calendar, managing my schedule. And after business hours, when I work with my children, even if there are many moments, sometimes I know this is the moment, and I'm present, and I'm all. So I hope that answered your question. That was a lot. Kind of wasn't in a nutshell necessarily, but I think we need to kind of give ourselves some grace with the mom guilt, and just believe that we're enough no matter what, and we're all doing.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
thank you for that. I feel like so this is something that comes to my mind on this subject, right? And as a husband and as a father, and just watching my own wife struggle through some of these things, is I picture coming home one day or coming to my daughter's house one day when she's grown, she's married, she has the grandkids, and seeing her struggle with this desire outside the home and wanting something more than just being, home with the kids. And what would I say as a father? It's like, honey, your God has so much more for you. God has a plan for you. And I would want to see her excited and joyful about going after those ambitions. And I could never see myself as a father being like, you know what? You should just stay home because that's your destiny, right? Like, stay home, be a mom, be a wife. That's all God had. Like, I don't think most of us dads aren't out there thinking. So where is this relevant to what we're talking about now? What I think sometimes, and you can add into this if you want, Stephanie, is we miss the fact that when we live out our ambitions in front of our children, when we go after that purpose in front of our children are watching, right? And so if they see a mom who's fearful to go after that, how might that affect them when they're adults?
Yeah.
Or if they see a mom
Yeah.
going after those ambitions, how might that affect them when they are adult moms themselves? And so I don't know what you can add into that conversation, but that feels like a big
Uh,
topic.
Yeah, I just think it's all about having that balance. I mean, I just feel personally in my own story, I feel blessed that I had the opportunity to stay at home, right? And I did choose that. I did choose that. And I was all in. And I'm getting ready to have our second daughter leave for college, and then I'll just have our 13-year-old home. Now, in fact, we're taking her to college, the second one this week on Thursday. And I'm going through it right now, right? And just mourning with that. And I'm letting myself feel all the feels, and it's okay. But and personally for my own story, I am glad that I was able to be there. I was the sole person when my husband was deployed all the time, that I was the one that, was there and kind of the base camp, you know and I so enjoyed that journey with her and watching her. But now it's the next journey of watching her live her life. And it's the next journey too of mine. And she's watching me live my life. And there's still so much more. And we're not done. It's just a transition. And I love to be that example for my daughters and my son as well. But we're talking about moms here, and um, so yeah, that's just something unique that I'm going through right now. But I'm glad that I also have my business, because I know after we take her, on the 17th, we drop her off. The 18th, after my son goes to school, I can still drop him off. I'm in the office and I'm focusing on this unique purpose, and nurturing moms now. I still have my son at home, so yeah, it's just all about balance and your thoughts and the way that you think about all of it.
Yep, that's great. So another thing you had mentioned, a slight shift here, is being faith-based. So I wanted to ask you, like, in what ways has God revealed himself to you throughout this journey so far?
Oh my gosh. I think, Megan, come back to your career, and even relaunching a business like I have is the best vehicle for personal growth. Oh my goodness, right? Where just you just are introduced to areas that you need to, that are areas of growth, right? That you need to work on, and I didn't necessarily know before, but are for me, right? And I just feel like, I'm just all for I'm always guided, right? And I'm always accessing him. He's my best coach. Right? I'm always, accessing the Lord. And you know what, there are times where, you can step off that grid, and then things start to go awry. And he's just someone I'm always going back to, right? Just to make sure, that that's my foundation. And that's how I really, cross reference when I talked about being an example. That those are just, that's my kind of my faith, or my guiding.
Is the foundation.
Mhm.
So another thing that I wanted to ask you about, and I ask other guests on the podcast because marriage is very important, right, as the
Mhm.
host. And so you've been married 24 years now. And so what is some of the secret sauce or secret tips for having a long-lasting successful marriage after 24 years? There's a lot that I'm sure, wisdom that you've gained, so please share that with us. What does it take?
Sure. Thank you for asking about my marriage. I really appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah. Because obviously we know that marriage isn't easy. In fact, as a military spouse, with him being gone all the time, deployed, for 6 months, moving, every 2 years. I mean, that definitely puts a strain on any marriage. But, again, mine is military, that had added some extra things. But, I mean, faith, I think, is what, that's what we cling to, in terms of that's what keeps us here right today. It's just we have that foundation of faith. And then also just, being humble. I turn the mirror around myself when if there's something that I'm getting, frustrated with about my husband, something that's going on with our marriage, not just being the the one that's blaming him, but really turning the mirror around myself and figuring out, okay, what can I do differently? And just managing my own thoughts about our relationship and just thinking about him better. And then also just going back to being that example. And another thing that's huge, I think, for marriage is and just with people in general, and even sometimes in our own relationships, our family members are the ones that can trigger us the most, right? Right? We love them the most, but they can also trigger us, you know. And I think just not outsourcing our own emotions based on how they show up and letting them be human and not deciding how we're going to feel from one day to the next based on, you know, how they're behaving. You know, we're ultimately responsible for ourselves. And, you know, I like to say, I mean, marriage helps you be holy for sure. And I think God is our soulmate, really. I mean, I love my husband. I mean, it's been a journey, a growth, a love, a fairy tale struggle. I mean, all of it. But I feel like ultimately, you know, just having, you know, our God and faith at the center, he always steers us back to.
Yeah, and it's I always love seeing and hearing the common threads of the answers to this question, right? And one of the things I hear you saying through that is don't expect perfection. And that's
Oh,
something I've
sure.
heard multiple times. Like if you're expecting
Yeah.
perfection from your spouse, you're already setting yourself up for a world.
Yeah.
And then another thing that you just mentioned is there's a particular term that my wife and I have been, you know, talking about recently is this idea of what's called enmeshment. And it's like
Okay.
where my emotions affect you and your emotions affect me. And we feel like we can't be okay because, you know, we're going through different feels at different times. And we don't necessarily
Yeah.
have to attach ourselves to that. So that is a huge, I think it holds us back from thriving in marriage sometimes.
Yes. No, I can talk about, I can relate to that too. Yeah, because I'm a feeler, right? I'm an empath. And so I feel all of it, which is a blessing. But if I'm like so enmeshed, you know, then it can be a curse for me, I guess, and you know, just being who I need to be and my growth, right? That ultimately impacts everybody, right? So yeah, I definitely, and just even as a veteran, and my, you know, he's retired, he's been retired a little over a year now, but you know, he's got some things that have came along with, you know, going to war and you know, and physically in his body and too, and just, and if I, and sometimes he's not, you know, all both of us, right? We don't always wake up on the right side of the bed, and you know, what's wrong? You know, how can I solve for that right now? Or and we just let that, we want to be there and support, but we can let that impact us so much, just their response when they're just not always, we just need to give them their space sometimes, you know what I mean? Let them process their own emotions, right? Which even that's a whole other subject, men versus women and processing emotions, you know, and things like that. But boy, that's the journey. That's been huge for me. And thank God for coaching. I think that's really, it's faith and coaching has saved our marriage, you know, and I'm just to be on, you know, I'm going to be real and about that. And thank God for it. You know, I think it's just, yeah, every
Yeah,
day you have to keep things in mind for sure.
right. And I think you hit on something big there though, you know, and here's the thing, like a lot of times I think we think men and women are so different and they are, but a lot of times we're similar. And here's what I mean, right? You talked about being an empath. Well, I'm my
Yeah,
family's empath.
I thought
And
so.
I'm the guy,
I
right?
know, right? And I know as soon as I said that, I'm like, I think he's the empath. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and sometimes, right, we stereotype that, but not
There's,
necessarily,
yeah,
right? It could be either or.
you're
But
right.
a friend of mine has taught me,
Yeah.
right, that as the empath, I cannot own the emotions of the other feelings that I feel because you probably know what I mean when you can sit in a room and if it feels dark, you can take on some of that feeling.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah,
joyous and happy, you can take
yeah.
on some of that feeling. And I think where it's a struggle for those that can inherit, for lack of a better term, emotions of others, we struggle not to own it as if it's our own emotion. And so
Yes, no, I so agree with that. I also think just for you, and I know that about you. See, I had a feeling because I'm an empath, but but I think that that can also be, if we are able to manage that, not take on everybody's emotions as our own. But even like we being empath can be our superpower, right? That we're
Yes.
feelers because when we can generate the emotion
Yes.
that we need, the energy, right? To be able to show up in our lives the way God wants us to, or we're meant to, or to grow ourselves. And then that energy, others can feel it too, when we're using it, in the right way. And those that attracts people to us, that and we can help them even more, because of that. But you're so right. And you're right. Not every male is, yeah, there's males that are feelers and empaths. And my husband is, God bless him, well, see, we can stereotype all day long. We can say, oh, he's a military guy, or oh, he's from the Midwest. I mean, right? It's best not to do that, right? But yeah, there it goes. It's on both sides, but I think we just need to look at the humans. Like I said, you look at the people and be able to,
Yeah.
yeah, it can be, it's just, it could be a strength overused. I think being an empath,
Sure.
being a feeler, if we don't use it in the right way. Yeah.
That's another point that it reminds me of another point that you made about allowing the others to process their emotion. Again, that's a conversation that comes up in my household a
Uh,
lot.
yes.
It's sometimes
Yeah.
a little bit difficult for us feelers to be able to give that space, especially to our spouses who are closest to us. But you
Yeah.
bring up a great point. Yeah, sometimes we it's really that's what they need.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And just that, not trying to rush in right away, to solve for it, or thinking that we need to walk on eggshells.
Mhm.
I just, just that kind of like manage our own, get back in our own head,
Yep.
manage our own thinking, to feel, more peaceful or empowered or patient or, yeah, just to give them that hold space, hold space. We hold space
Cool,
for our
cool.
clients, right? We need to
Right.
hold space for our spouses.
Yep. Feel like I'm learning that more and more as I get older and go deeper into my marriage. So I get
Oh, that's the secret. I think that is, we're to like a pinnacle, like a precipice. I mean, well, I'm sure there's more, right? There's always more that God's like, oh yeah, thanks God. I just thank him for all the lessons, even the painful ones, just with it all. And, but yeah, we're at, maybe you and I are both at the same place, and for that learning. And then there's going to be more, and it's not necessarily always, it's going to be uncomfortable,
yeah.
right? But we
Oh,
have that foundation, to get to the other side, and we're not.
nope.
We're just doing our best.
And that's okay. So
Yep.
let's, as we wrap up, two more questions, Stephanie. Like one is just what's the ultimate message that you want our listeners to hear? And then tell us how they can reach you and what for what specific services. So start with what's the
Mm.
ultimate message that you want the
You know
listeners
what?
to
I think I'm an advocate for them. I worked for an organization for a period of time where I was a military family employment advocate. And I recently came back to that word advocate. I'm a coach, but I'm also your advocate. And I want to get the did I say that narrative out there again about, let's change the narrative. Let's be thought leaders on LinkedIn ourselves. We need to have a band of mothers, right? That get out there and talk about, how we are, what makes us valuable, where we own our worth, where we we own our value, our career story. We go back to our career story. We are proud of the decisions that we made when we decide to hit a career pause. But the in between, the accomplishments there, that we're proud of that as well. And then we're taking responsibility for upskilling, that doesn't need to be such a fearful thing, to make ourselves more relevant now, to become like of the world in terms of our savviness. Again, it's our responsibility, if we aren't sharp technically, to like maybe get on LinkedIn, and there's courses you can take in like an hour and a half, right? You can like take a course on LinkedIn, and then you can apply, let's just not stay stuck. Let's own our value, own our story, and let's figure out things we can do to take action. And that's what I help them to do within my Relaunch in 90 program. Sure, within 90 days, you might very well have that job, but also most importantly, you're relaunching yourself back into the job market. You have everything in place, plus the career confidence on the inside to back it up. And it takes all of it. So that's what I help.
Awesome. And so if ladies want to get into your 90-day program today, how would they go about doing that?
Well, I know I listed when maybe you can also attach it, to this podcast, but there is a link that they can click on to set up a free consultation where I will go deeper into everything that we cover in my program and the structure of it. Every week we are doing something different. So it's teaching and it's coaching. But the first thing that we do start off with is they answer the ideal career clarity questions. And then the first session talk about all of that, where they have an opportunity to really get to know themselves again, career wise, and go deep just from within that first coaching session. And then that second session, I enable them to understand how to obtain career confidence through the self-coaching model. The third section, we go over the career plan of action. And then we're off from there, just doing all the things again that they need to do to be ready on the surface, but then also get to where they need to be on the inside. And then lastly, the last session is work-life balance. Like, how are they going to manage managing their thoughts, right? When they do go back to work, putting things in place ahead of time, just even throughout my program, to what are they going to do as far as the division of labor within the household? What things are they not necessarily going to be doing anymore? What do they need to delegate? And the rest, they're just going to show up and delight in. So that's kind of just, they'll be able to within that introductory consult session, get a really good picture about how my program works. And then decide if it's the right program for them. So there is the link, the Relaunch link, but also just Stephanie Allen Life Coach at gmail.com. They can email me. I also have a website, stephanieallencoaching.com, that they can check out just to get a little bit of taste for what I do. And then I'm also on LinkedIn under Stephanie Allen.
Okay, and for those listening who maybe don't see this on video, it's Stephanie with a PH, STEPHANIE, Allen, ALLEN. So when she's saying her name, just for spelling sake, when you look up the URL, you get the spelling right. And I will also be posting these links in the podcast episode description. So if you'd like to just look in that description and pull the link so you can pull it up on your phone or whatever other device you're using, those links will be available to you. So Stephanie, I just want to say thank you for spending the time with us today and for sharing all of your wisdom and insights. I am for sure, I know for a fact there are women out there right now that may be struggling, or maybe they're just excited about next steps. I think they're going to gain a lot from this, as well as the program that you offer. So thanks for being with us.
You're welcome. And just one last thing I wanted to say, it's just a great opportunity to even get on that free consult call with me, because you'll be able to get some perspective right away, even if you don't end up working with me for one reason or another. I'll let you know all about my program and how it works, but you'll walk away with confidence even ahead of time. So yeah, thank you, David. I appreciate being on here today, having an opportunity to chat with you. I love the direction this all went, right? It would just kind of evolve this conversation. And yeah, thank you. Thanks for all you do. And I know you have a lot of men out there that are searching for, purposes that they love. And this is mine. And I look forward to watching your coaching program grow as well. Thanks for this opportunity today.
I appreciate it, Stephanie. Thank you. And for those of you listening, as I always say, remember to lead well, live on purpose, and honor God with your life. You have a great day. And thanks again, Stephanie. Thank you once again for listening and supporting the No Purpose Without Love podcast. If you like what you've been hearing, please remember to follow this podcast to continue receiving notifications about new upcoming episodes. For more information about how to start your own purpose-filled journey or to get in touch with me, you can start my online course by going to courses.beaconleaders.com, or you can email me at info@beaconleaders.com. You can also visit my website at www.davideguresso.com. I will post these links and others in the description section of each episode as well. So until next time, remember to lead well, live on purpose, and honor God with your life.